wedding
started like
reception.
explaining why Glen Grant 18 was such a big deal. I was like, okay, Jim Murray, friggin' Jim Murray. Like,
Heather's dragging you away. It was hilarious.
welcome once again to Chill Filter, the podcast where we drink whiskey so you don't have to. But you probably should, and you probably are, and that's why we gosh darn like you. Another special episode this week. This is the third of 4 test episodes with potential new co-host. Here with me, I have MarkO O'Laughlin. And say something quick, Marco, but I'm going to keep going after you do.
Hey guys, happy to be here. Blessed to be here.
Yeah, and the Chiefs are playing today. And
I've got Sunday Night Football against the Jets, so
the Jets.
we'll watch. I'll watch the first quarter of that butt whooping, and then we'll move back on to having dinner and playing some games with you guys.
Sportsy things, am I right? But anyway, here's a way you can support us if you haven't before. Check us out. There was something that was on my mind the other day. I was like, this is a great way to support us. And, hit up the Discord. Hit us up if you want to join the Discord, where you set it up for mostly Patreon members thus far. But, reach out on Instagram or email at chillfilteredpodcast@gmail.com. And if you do, we'll send you a link and you can hop on the Discord. It's been great talking to people. Great, like especially talking to some of our longtime listeners. It's been really just funny to just shoot the breeze in real life. So we love it, and kind of be a part of that community too. It's not just like one-on-one with the host. And they are serious about that Patreon membership, because I still haven't gotten my invite to the Discord on that one. It's been out for 2 weeks. Exactly. So that's a way to support us this week, and hope everything looks good. Literally worked out very well that MarkO was in town during this time of test episodes. So this is a very special episode. We're both facing the camera.
That's right.
And yet that's our first episode where 2 people are facing the same camera on the same screen.
Yeah, I'm looking at you, Brian Rapp. I made the 2,000-mile travel to come record this episode.
Yeah,
where are you at?
So MarkO's originally from Missouri.
Yeah.
And lives in Arizona right now. He used to be MarkO in KC. Now he's MarkO in AZ.
Got married.
And so let me think. Is there anything else I need to get to before we get into the Shooting the Breeze segment? I don't think so. MarkO, tell me about yourself.
Hey, man. So, about me. Grew up in a small farming community in the middle of nowhere in Missouri.
Nice. Not in Weston, was it?
No, definitely not Weston. I do appreciate the thoughtfulness of this whiskey today, and we'll get into that a little bit later.
Yeah.
Once we actually tell you what whiskey we're drinking. But small farming community, 1,600 people, moved around to different places, lived in Arkansas, lived in Kansas City, got engaged, got to meet Cole through my wife. She introduced me to the podcast, and before I even met Cole, because I thought I knew him by the time I'd listened to 100 episodes in the span of about 2 to 3 months.
Did you listen with a speed?
Yeah, I usually listen about 1.25 or 1.5.
That's fun.
And then I like to hit skip on all the musics.
Nice.
Kind of those. I enjoy going on the walk with you guys, though, so I do that. But did that on my travel back and forth to work every Monday morning. So at like 6:30 in the morning, I'm driving to work. It's like, all right, gonna hang out with my friends, but I can't drink whiskey this early in the morning or on my way to work.
That's the problem with being a Monday morning episode release.
Oh my gosh, yeah. And then of course, being a teacher, I can't drink before I head to work, so that's a big no-no. Yeah. But then got to meet you through our wives, because they are huge friends.
Yeah.
Honest to goodness, like
but
every
they're normal
time,
size, but they're huge friends.
Huge friends.
Yeah.
But we every time you have a child, I just come to visit, because my wife cannot go without seeing your babies, and has just been absolutely sucking that up. I think it keeps her young, so you might want to check your kids. Good. Look for some gray hairs. She might be a succubus. But no, just have known you for a while now. We've known each other since October 2020.
Yeah,
we got to go to. You took me to Del Bach.
That's right. He was there. He wasn't on the episode, but he was in the background. I think I made you laugh one time or something like that.
Yeah. If you listen very, very closely, you can hear me, but like I'm white knuckling the stool the whole time. Like I can't make a sound, and I want to be on this episode.
That was a fun one. Yeah.
Fantastic episode.
Yeah.
And then just the dating long distance. You and your wife were pivotal in mine and Jordan's relationship, and the friendship you and I have built. We used to talk to each other like in the morning once a week.
Yeah, that's right.
Like stupid early for both of us.
Yeah, on the way to work.
Yeah.
No.
And then you moved out to Virginia, and I still haven't forgiven you for that.
Yeah. I have a lot of people in my life that say that. I've moved too many times. As I wear my Wisconsin Badger shirt.
Yeah, no, but you are dearly loved, dearly missed, and anytime, like, of course, I've gotten a couple people into the podcast now because of that. Totally. Shout out to Patrick Smith.
Patreon member.
Yep. So just absolutely love it. And then, of course, the big culmination, you were the best man at my wedding. Yeah. I still remember asking you to do that last March.
Yeah, I remember that too. Like, I was dumbfounded.
10 minutes into it, you're like, wait, what did you ask me to do
again?
Yeah.
I remember doing that now. I had actually forgotten until you brought that up. I was like, wait a second, let's just make this clear.
And then, of course, you'd given me you gave me this shout out, and me and Jordan are like, well, of course, and I think honestly, like I've been treasuring the opportunity to do this, but like my wife, I think, has enjoyed it more for me. Like she's happier for me than I am. Not to say that I'm not happy about this, but she knows like how much I dedicate to listening to this.
Yeah,
and,
totally.
Like the bottles I've left you, like got you into Wilderness Trail, got you into...
Yeah, that was 100% you.
We left you the wild turkey that you drank on the Thanksgiving episode.
That's right.
The tragic episode.
Yep, you left me the Grand Canyon bottle that I still have. Yep.
Yeah, that one, I don't know.
We'll figure it out. I'm still ready to try it. I haven't tried it yet. I'm ready to try it on the podcast. So.
I know the one I tried, like it was really good, but then the one I tried later, I was like, oh no, this isn't gonna be good.
Yeah.
So we'll find out, and then just this journey of going through this with you. Totally. And every time I come in here, it's like Cole's like, what can I pour him he's never had?
Yeah.
Which is pretty much everything. So I'm kind of that 60 and under whiskey range. Like that's where I live because that's what I can reasonably buy without upsetting my wife or my finances. So
yeah. And yesterday we went to McCormick's Whiskey Grill in the one in downtown Richmond, or at least the Fan in Richmond.
Yeah. Our second time going.
Yes, the first time we went, the bartender had not opened the restaurant, even though it was supposed to be open by that point.
We waited an hour and he still wasn't there.
A stupid long time. At least 30, 40 minutes, and we're just like, all right, we'll just leave. Yeah. But this time it was great. We had Floyd. Shout out to Floyd. Floyd was great.
Good luck on that podcast.
Yeah, he's starting his own podcast. I forget the name right now, but I'll try to find it by the end of the episode. Well,
you'll shout it out when you're a guest on the episode.
Exactly. Soon. Yeah, he said I'll be one of his first guests because we work together really well. Actually, Floyd was started just after I started at McCormick's, and I remember, and I tell Floyd this as well. I remember the time that he said Yazamaki. Mentioning the Japanese whiskey, and I was like, I don't know if this guy's gonna make it. Like basically, I just don't know if he'll learn quick enough. But he has. He's stuck it out for at least 5 or 6 years, and he's killing it at McCormick. So he showed us.
Everyone's tongue is allowed to be a little dyslexic when they're drinking whiskey.
Yes. One of my favorite things yesterday, though, hopefully we'll be able to do an episode on this soon. Man. But it was an Indian whiskey that I had never heard of. It's called Rampur Double Cask. And it very well might have been my whiskey of the year for 2023. It was so good.
Fantastic.
It was like good enough on the front of the palate as maybe not to be whiskey of the year. Like it was like very good Highland, not a Highland, like a single malt style. Yep. It was lighter than, it was less spicy than Amrut or Paul John. But it was the finish. I won't gonna give too much away, but the finish blew my mind.
And I'm not selling any tasting notes, but it was fantastic.
Yeah, it was unreal.
I've never gotten this tasting note before.
Yeah,
ever.
I was so happy with it, and so
90 proof.
Yeah, and
what
$90 at the ABC store. So and available at multiple ABC stores in Virginia. So I'm gonna be on top of that this week. Get at least 2 bottles.
105 in Total Wine in Arizona.
It's still worth it to me. Like,
come on, Total Wine. Come on, Arizona. Like, you're biggest distributor in the state. Like, how can you jack me up that much?
Yeah. No, I was surprised to see that, to be honest. But maybe it's harder to import Indian whiskey to Arizona than Virginia or something. Who knows? But I am going to buy multiple bottles of that. And if you see it, listeners, before I even do the episode, I highly recommend picking one out. Rampur. That's Rampur. Yep. Double cask. Oh my goodness.
Yes.
Like I said, could be the whiskey of the year this year. So Yeah, that's what we got in that way. We're not ready for the break yet, but let me ask you more about yourself, MarkO. What are you entry buzzing on?
I have to talk about me.
So just whiskey.
This one is the Buffalo Trace
kosher
rye bourbon recipe.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, which I think I've tried once now, because I believe that was the episode that Robbie did with John Hughes without me. And John, and then basically I was just saving it for the podcast, and now that we've done an episode on it, I can probably drink it myself, but I always forget if I did the rye or the rye recipe bourbon. But I believe it was, they did the episode on the rye recipe bourbon.
I'm enjoying this. It's not melting my face off at a 94 proof. And it was a nice little entry bus coming up on this bottled and bond we got going on here in a little bit.
The interesting thing is that I remember the episode we did on the wheat recipe bourbon, and it was the least of any wheat recipe bourbon thing that I've had from Buffalo Trace, including there isn't. I mean, there's basically the Weller line and the Van Winkle line, right. But that's not saying much. But it was not as good. The wheat recipe one wasn't as good as anything. It was definitely the least of the wheated Buffalo Trace bourbons. I am entry buzzing myself on Mossberg. I've done this before as an entry buzz. I don't intend to make the Mossburn, that is. I don't intend to make this an episode because it's an independent bottling of an Altmore, 12-year cask strength Highland, really a Speyside, and it is a velvety good. It's not like a sherry finish like a Boona velvety good, but it is lighter velvety good, and it is a real good.
Did I see real quick? 70 or 63.7?
63.7, baby.
Man, for a Scotch? Wow.
Yeah. They kill it. I mean, these independent bottlers in Scotland, they really are able to break out of the mold of traditional Scotch, because, you'll see Macallan's and they won't reach 100 proof. No. Unless you get a cask strength, but they don't really push that 100 proof line off him.
Well, I mean,
some will, but
you and I are Ardbeg Army, soldiers.
Oh my goodness! And Ardbeg will push the boundaries. That's for sure.
You're a Corey Brecken. I'm an Oogdahl, and both of those are even at cask strength. They're 55 max. 56?
Yeah. Usually they're about no more than 60. Usually,
right. You never see a 60. So to see 63 on that, I was surprised.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it's great. And my father-in-law, shout out to Tracy, got that bottle for me and paid for it. And I was expecting to pay him for it, but he's like, no, it's a gift now. So shout out to Tracy. That's who he is. I love my father-in-law.
Oh, yeah. Tracy's great. And then got to meet him last time I was here in town. And I got to meet both your in-laws. And then, of course, the other thing he did get you, was that the same trip he got you the Glen Grant 15 special edition?
Same deal.
And then because he couldn't find the Glen Grant 18.
Yeah.
But here's the other shout out. I am also the person who is the best whiskey gift up to this point so far. I found you Glen Grant 18 in Arizona. There were 4 bottles in the whole state.
Oh, wow.
And the closest one was in Scottsdale.
Oh, so, you went all the way to Scottsdale?
I know. I told my wife. So I live in South Phoenix. Scottsdale's up in North Phoenix. So looked at my wife as soon as I listened to the episode, and I was like, so we have the money on the credit card. I'm going for a drive, and I'm getting Cole this bottle of whiskey because we have a rule that we ask each other on any purchases that are $100 or more.
Yeah, that's good.
And that one, I was just like, I have access to it. I've got to do it. So that was your best man gift, and you were so dumbfounded by that too. That you went into podcast mode right in front of my entire wedding.
Started
reception.
Explaining why Glen Grant 18 was such a big deal. I was like, okay, Jim Murray. Friggin' Jim Murray.
Heather's dragging you away. It was hilarious.
Yeah, it was so funny.
Let's
chill out, man.
So that's when we went over to the side table and we poured 4 or 5 different things and had a little tasting for us.
Yeah. So speaking of gifts, keep in mind that Christmas is coming. The goose is getting fat. Please put a penny in the old man's hat. And by the old man's hat, I mean prep for Cole and future co-host, because Christmas will not be any different this year. And, the only difference will be that we're giving 2 gifts, one for a randomly selected gifter, and then one for the best gift this year. And I already purchased at least 2 bottles for that, and one's a very special one. One's one we talk about a lot, and I won't give it away. But Christmas is coming, and I am shamelessly asking for your gifts.
He's not joking on the not giving away. I've been in his house for the last 2 days. I had no idea, and I've been around every single bottle he has, so he's got them hidden.
Yeah. You know what we should do? I'm thinking maybe we should do the Rampor for a drink along.
That would be fantastic.
Yeah, I'll probably do that. That's what I'm gonna do.
There you go. Good choice.
Yeah, because I already have for the next 3 months. After this next month, for the next 3 months, I will have. I already have the next 3 picked out, and they're good. They're like some good bottles next 3 months. So
let's see, you're talking January, February next year then.
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and so keep that in mind. People that are interested in Patreon, we're not stopping. We're just slowing down a tiny bit. That's it. But then we're kicking back off once we get the co-host and. So we'll get that going. So keep an eye, and if you're on Patreon, I encourage you to keep on Patreon. Mostly because like I said, we're not stopping. So. That is that, I guess. Why don't we... I have some good history this week. And we'll get into the history. I guess we'll mention what we're drinking today. We have a bottle and a shout-out, too. Shout-out to my friend Carl Joseph, who was in Kentucky at a liquor mart, or a liquor barn. I think it's barn. And... he was like, hey, I'll take some pictures of the bourbon aisle. Is there anything you want? And I saw Ben Holladay, Missouri Straight, which is the rye recipe of their portfolio. Rye recipe bourbon, that is. And he bought me that. And he got me a Nulu green what do you call it, wax bottle, which is hopefully going to be sort of like the one we got from ADHD as a pick. ADHD Whiskey. Check him out, Matt Porter at ADHD Whiskey channel on YouTube.
So give that shout out again to who?
To Matt Porter at ADHD Whiskey.
And then the whiskey came from?
The Baller. Matt Porter?
No, the one from Ben Holladay.
Oh yeah. And from Carl Joseph. What a baller. And we're drinking Ben Holladay bottled in bond Missouri Straight bourbon. Like I said, rye recipe, but we'll get into that. But before we get into that, before we get into any notes otherwise, let's go for a quick walk. So here we go to a walk break. Hey, Marco.
What up, Cole?
So, what is your opinion on bucket hats?
Oh, bucket hats take me back to the 90s. The best time of my life.
But what's your favorite kind of bucket hat?
Favorite kind of bucket hat's got to be a Bush's Baked Beans bucket hat.
That's right, listeners. If you go to bushesbakedbeans.com/chillfiltered, you might be able to win yourself a true Bush's Baked Beans hat that is in the bucket hat style. If you're interested in getting yourself some bucket hat with Bush's Baked Beans in the lid, you know what I'm saying? Check out us on bushesbakedbeans.com/chillfiltered. And we're back. Some notes to get to this week. I apologize. We were supposed to do a Google Meetup last week. And I realized that I scheduled that on my anniversary, and that was a dumb idea, and I never let anyone know, and it kind of slipped through the cracks. So I apologize. We'll do that in the future, and I will set it up a little better. But yeah, we're definitely going to make it happen. So like I said, today we're drinking Ben Holladay Missouri Straight Bourbon, bottled in bond. This is our first Ben Holladay whiskey on the podcast, but it's not our first bottle from the distillery. The brand is associated with McCormick's Platte Valley Corn Whiskey. So we'll get into that a little bit. We'll get into the background. But mostly we're going to get into the background of who Ben Holladay was and what the distillery became. So Ben Holladay is a very interesting man, actually. In the mid-1800s, he was a very successful businessman. He, at one point in the late 1800s, was the largest employer, or represented the largest employer in the U.S., having owned everything from silver mines to transportation manufacturing companies, and, of course, a distillery in Weston, Missouri. He moved from Kentucky to Weston as a teenager, but was quite the go-getter, as far as I saw online. He created the Overland Express stagecoach lines that were ultimately sold to Wells Fargo in the end. He was known as the, quote, Stagecoach King, which I thought was pretty cool. I mean, especially moving there as a teenager and like starting this empire, basically. So in 1849, he purchased land to build his distillery on in Weston, which was known for its limestone spring water passing through the area. Which is actually a big deal. Like Missouri, like that section, like everything from like Wisconsin to like Tennessee, West Virginia area has a ton of limestone deposits in it.
Hard water everywhere.
Yeah. I mean, and it's like calcium carbonate is like the word in that section of the country, and you'll see like everything like for example, Mammoth Caves in Kentucky is completely formed by limestone deposits and like limestone sinkholes, basically. They're not sinkholes because they haven't sunk in, but they're caves because it's all limestone.
Yeah, the erosion erodes all that away. Same
with
deal.
The acid rain and all that.
Yeah, Northeast Missouri's got a couple. There's the Mark Twain Cave, and Cameron Cave does the same thing. They're so much fun.
Yeah, so check them out if you're in the area.
Yep.
I think Mammoth Mammoth is the largest in the U.S. I think Carlsbad is number 2. I think.
Way out in California.
We went to when I went to Wind Cave is one of the bigger ones too, and that's in South Dakota, and that's a limestone cavern as well.
Okay.
And that's, I think, a national park. I don't know, but anyway, that's not on the notes. You know what's on the notes? By 1856, they sold their first batch of bourbon for 35 cents a gallon. Could you imagine? And over the years, eventually Ben Holladay died, and so did his brother, who had taken over the distillery. His name was Major David Holloway.
Wait, what? People die? What's going on?
People die.
What?
As you know, people die. And so he, but the distillery switched hands quite a few times, actually, and eventually stopped making bourbon after a big fire in the 1900s. But one of the companies that owned the distillery and sort of still owns the distillery is McCormick's Distilling. That was in 1942. But by 1950, McCormick's Distilling was bought out by Midwest Grain Products, MGP, and they bought them out and no longer owned by them. But I thought that was super interesting that MGP had a hand in what we're drinking today in a way.
Then they sold them off. Now they're buying back all their properties.
It was like in the 90s. Yeah.
That's crazy.
And but they really ramped things up in 2015, the new company, when they renovated and resurrected the Holladay Distillery name, which was a good idea because it was kind of it was the origin of the distillery. And in 2019, Missouri Bourbon became a thing. And on August 28th, the Missouri House Bill 266. MarkO, what are the rules for Missouri Bourbon?
Ooh, Missouri Bourbon. Well, first, it's got to be...
Okay.
You've got to have it that it's bourbon.
Yep. Federally bourbon.
So, hey, there you go. It's got to be made in America with the 51% corn. And
nailing it so far.
The whole white oak container.
Yep.
Which, if y'all didn't know this, it doesn't say barrel. It actually says container. So if you want to make a wood box and put bourbon in it, it still works.
Yeah, as long as it's oak.
Man, what else? Oh, and then you got all those weird barrel proof things. Like you can't distill it beyond 140, and then you got to put it in
160. That is.
160.
And no barreling higher than 125. Yep.
Yep. But then for Missouri, you've got to mash it.
Yep.
Distill it. Ferment it.
Yep.
And it has to be in Missouri white oak barrels or containers.
Yep.
And so the cool thing, and I always love, little side story, I did 25 to 27 distilleries in a span of
4 days,
5.5 days in Kentucky. Had a wonderful spreadsheet for those whiskey nerds that want to just like get the bang for your buck and like really show off and go around to distilleries in Kentucky. Hit me up. I can tell you my plan. But the Independent Stave Company, I think is the company
Lebanon, Kentucky.
Lebanon, Kentucky actually gets a lot of their white oak from Lebanon, Missouri. So coming from the Ozarks and that white oak. So.
As I remember, the single oak project, which was a big deal in terms of wood, considering how they aged those 192 barrels.
Oh yeah,
I believe every single tree was from Missouri.
Probably. Which is funny. Like here I am, not the biggest Buffalo Trace fanboy, and we've infused it now twice into this episode.
Yeah, bring it on.
And
hey, I mean, you can see it right there.
Yeah, right
there on YouTube.
That's right. I'm gonna slip Wild Turkey into this episode somewhere.
Yeah. So okay, so you mentioned you had to be Missouri oak. There are 2 other rules.
2 other rules?
Maybe 1 other rule.
Okay.
No, 2 other rules. If you give up, I'll tell you.
Let's see.
You kind of skipped over one, sort of.
Did I? Man, okay.
So you said it needed to be fermented? Aged,
mashed.
or I'm sorry, mashed.
Oh, so it has to be aged.
So it has to be aged. Yeah, that's the one.
So
it has to be aged in Missouri, even though it also has to be aged in Missouri oak.
Right. And then I think the only other thing I could possibly think of is that it would have to be made with Missouri grains.
Missouri corn only.
Oh,
so
just Missouri corn.
Rye might not grow as well.
A little hard, in Missouri. Although there is a small micro distillery that I do know of that it's the only one in Northeast Missouri. Shout out Sweetwater.
Sweetwater.
But stop by there because it's only 10 miles away from my parents' home when I visit them. Nice. They have a weird like Jimmy Red corn that they make it from, and I think they get their rye from a local farmer too. So
rye's hard in the Midwest until you get north. Like once you get into like Minnesota, Wisconsin, like you can grow rye. Yeah, man, you know, Buffalo Trace gets most of their rye from North Dakota.
I'm gonna say usually it's the Dakotas, south and north, and then a little bit into like Minnesota or Montana and those plains and prairies.
Yeah.
So let's see, what would be the one I missed?
No, that was it. You got it aged, and then Missouri corn.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So, no, that's great. What else do I got? The distillery has 2 bourbons at this point. Besides, it's not as clearly associated with McCormick Platte Valley, but it is the same company. The 2 bourbons are Ben Holladay Bourbon, also known as the bottle. Well, they're both bottled and bond, but this one is Ben Holladay, as opposed to Holladay red wheat, soft red wheat bourbon, which is also bottled and bond.
There you go.
But let's get into what we're drinking today. The bottled and bond that's not the wheated one. So by assumption, this is a rye whiskey as opposed to a wheated whiskey. Wheated bourbon, I'm sorry, rye bourbon.
Rye Nashville on that bourbon.
And so the label is actually pretty cool. If you look at it, it gives a lot of information away. First of all, there's their tax seal on the top because it is bottled and bond, and that's one of the requirements of bottled and bond whiskey is it has certain labeling requirements, one of which being the tax seal above the cork. And that's from the Bottled and Bond Act of 1897. But it's also got the warehouse on the bottle, as well as the distribution of floors used in this specific batch. The warehouse is warehouse C. The distribution of floors is 44% on floor 1, 56% on floor 5. So a little hotter up there. Might change it a bit. Of course, it's 50% and /100 proof because it's bottled and bond. But otherwise, it also says it was distilled in spring of 2016, bottled in spring of 2022. And do you know this, MarkO, that spring doesn't necessarily mean, or March through June, right? So a spring distilling season.
Oh, spring distilling season. So that has to do with like the bottled and bond. It's like January through June and then July through December.
Yep. So it's fall and spring are the big 2 distilling seasons.
Yep.
And so it's funny because you can see that on the bottle. It says it is distilled or bottled in spring of 2022, yet it was bottled on July 18th.
Right.
So that is not spring, theoretically, or whatever you want to call it.
Could have sat around in a stainless steel tank for a couple months.
That's true. That's actually a good point. But it also says aged 6 years in new charred oak barrels. And then, guess what we get to do next? Oh, this is a screw top.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh.
That's funny. Yeah, there's no cork on this John piece.
Sadness.
So I guess I was about to say we get to do a straight cork pop, which we've never... Because normally what I'll do is I'll do the original cork pop, send a couriered sample to Robbie, and then say, this is the first time I'm drinking it, but not the first time I've opened it. But this is the first time I've opened this one, and it looks like it's a screw top, which I'm not against. Actually, it might even be better. Or at least if it were a synthetic cork, I think that's a little better.
Yeah.
But let's give this the old cork pop. What do you say? Oh, dang it! All right. Do you remember the episode where Robbie was on for the first time? It wasn't when he was a host yet, but he was. Man. It was like episode 54 or something like that. We drank the Rogue Spirits Dead Guy whiskey.
Yes.
And he pours like 3 fingers. And I'm like, Robbie, do you know how much we typically drink on this podcast? And he's like, oh, no, I just figured it was like a lot. But I'm going to pour my 2 pours.
Hey, and then you can pour 3 fingers isn't bad with me. I mean, it's a Sunday afternoon, so I'm down.
'Tis the season. Here you go, and then you can close it up when you're done.
Will do.
I always found that funny. It was like he poured quite a bit, and I was like, I'm not even ready for that much. So we'll get into drinking. Let me get some nose action on the neat pour. So one of the reasons I really wanted this bourbon was because of ADHD whiskey, Matt Porter, where he did the review of both the soft red wheat and then the rye recipe bourbon as well. And he said the rye recipe was better, but they were both very impressive for non-Kentucky bourbon or non-like Indiana, Kentucky, Tennessee bourbons. And so it's kind of cool that like Missouri's putting their name on the bourbon, dossier or what. I don't know what you should say, but
which of course,
great nose.
Yeah, Weston, of course, being on that Kansas City side, that's why I'm all decked out in my Kansas City Chiefs stuff.
So, and that's the funny thing. If you haven't recognized by now, last episode we had with Bryce, and we drank one of the better Japanese options out there, and he is Japanese American. And then for Brian Rapp, we both really were into the Jack Daniel's Single Barrel Barrel Proof Rye, and so I'm trying to bring the heat when it comes to. I'm trying to bring the relevancy and the heat, like good pours, nothing lame, and somewhat relevant when it comes to each test episode. So getting a little, it's caramel sweet, like chewy caramel as opposed to like hard candy.
Sure. I do appreciate the fact that it is not melting my face off. Like I'm getting my nose right down in it. It's totally. Definitely a sweetness. Caramel, I can see that. Yeah. Brown sugar, something along those lines. Yeah. A little bit darker.
A little bit of butteriness, but in almost the toffee-like way.
Ooh, that'll be fun. That'll be interesting.
Really nice front of the palate. Appley, but not in like a Buffalo Trace appley way. More of a baking apples kind of side. Like halfway to baked apple pie.
Yeah, that's like apple crumbles. What
came
to my mind.
I can dig that.
Like there's a little bit of like an oatmeal.
Like a topping
on top of it. Yeah.
But my name's Cole. I get apples on every good whiskey.
That's true. It's definitely my favorite note, at least for bourbons. But I will say there's some of the things I can get apples for. But yeah, I love the apple notes. So yeah, so far, good on you, Holladay, Ben Holladay.
Oh man, I'm telling you right now, if I had known about this when I was living in Kansas City, because I used to have a little tradition. I'd drink Irish whiskey while watching the Notre Dame Fighting Irish on Saturdays, and then I'd drink Kansas City whiskey on Sundays watching the Chiefs. So dang, I missed out.
Overall, I love it, but I am very impressed and high respect to Weston, Missouri, and Holladay Distilling. Because very clearly, I want to say, if I haven't made this clear already, they make their own stuff here. It is a Missouri bourbon, and they did not source this at all. And this is actually really good. This reminds me of like a decent MGP juice, like a good MGP juice at like 6 years or so.
Yeah, I wonder how much MGP, whenever they owned it, how much that kind of overflowed and impacted on them.
But who knows? Because MGP hasn't always been known for like quality bourbon, but they, I don't know if they were ever considered not quality bourbon.
Right.
But like only until like the last 10, 12, 15 years can I say that like people get excited. There was a time even in that last 10, 12, 15 years where people were upset with MGP because they're like, people should be making their own whiskey. And then people started to realize like, actually MGP makes a lot of good stuff.
Oh yeah.
So it's just funny that happens.
I mean, people got to get off the ground too. So sourcing's fine, I think.
But kudos to Ben Holladay for that very reason, Yep. Yeah, sourcing is fine. Fantastic. But like, if you can make this kind of stuff and put a 6-year bourbon bottled in bond out there, that is actually good.
Heck yes.
Yeah, and that's the cool thing is like, they literally put out a 6-year bottle and bond, but the bottle and bond minimum is 4 years. So they kept it in there a little extra just so they could put out a good product. So go for it, Missouri.
Yeah, absolutely. Get this. Yeah, all my KC friends, go. Don't miss out on this. Go take advantage.
Totally.
Spread it around to your friends throughout the whole area in the state.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm getting good apples. A little bit of right on the finish, but not in a bad way. Almost a slight pepperiness. It's got a little bit of cinnamon, but in a really good apple pie way, as opposed to a, straight cinnamon or too spicy way.
Yeah, no, like that apple crumbles definitely was like all over my brain. And I just be honest, listeners, I've been having some issues with tasting. Like I've got like the tip of my tongue.
It's interesting.
It's really hard to see. The tip of my tongue, like it's almost as if it's been burned, and it's like my pain receptors are just going nuts.
Yeah.
So I've had to relearn how to drink whiskey. I'm also more sensitive to oak. So this doesn't have any tannic to it at all.
No.
Like this is not bitter. It's not oaky. Like I could, like a little bit of that baking spice might come through in that cinnamon kind of realm, but this definitely is not overdone. Like this is fantastic.
Yeah, I really dig it a lot. I really can't say it's blowing my mind, but I'm very impressed for a Missouri whiskey that's doing their own stuff. It is, I like to squeeze it. I just dropped a few drops of limestone water from Kentucky, not Missouri, Kentucky. So who knows? They might, fight it out a little bit.
Honestly, there's probably a little too much rust in some of that Missouri water.
Yeah. Well, that's, you actually elaborate on that.
Oh, okay.
Because that is a really good point.
Yeah. No. So straight up, here you go. Another side story into MarkO and his history. My mother works for a water distribution company in Missouri, so I've actually been to the water cleaning plant and how they go through that whole process. So when I jump into the shower, I know the difference between somebody that's not using a soft water, a water softening system, and somebody who is just using straight out of. And I grew up drinking well water straight from the hose, so I'm one of those people. So Missouri has a lot of iron in its ground too, and that rustiness can cause problems with whiskey. Yeah. If you do not, and a lot of people are doing reverse osmosis to get any of that out, because if you put
a tiny bit of iron,
it will turn your whiskey black as ink.
True story.
Will ruin everything.
Which is crazy. That like the slightest bit of iron in your water can ruin it.
Oh my gosh.
But if you're trying to make some at home, remove the iron. And you know what removes iron? Limestone. Or calcium carbonate can have a huge impact on bringing out the iron. And so in Kentucky, they don't even have to filter it because they consider it already filtered through the limestone.
Right.
So they don't have to really take out the iron content from the whiskey. But it's a very... it's an inner secret to apparently the distilling industry. If you have slight amounts of iron in your water, good luck, because it'll taste terrible and it'll turn your whiskey black.
Ruin it. I'd be curious to know, like Hot Springs, Arkansas, so cool. The water comes out of the ground from the hot spring, so purified.
Nice.
Like it is not bad for you at all. Like the bacteria is killed.
You can lick it off your chest.
I'm not joking. They have taps in town that you can just drive up to with large containers and fill them. And
literally spring water. Yeah,
literally spring water. And of course, there's a company that bottles spring water straight from it too.
Nice.
I would be curious to know like what its iron content is and how well you could use that for distilling. Which, I mean, come on, Hot Springs, like that'd be something cool to do here too.
Check them out, Hot Springs.
Yeah.
But yes, I added a little water and took a little nose. I think the oak showed up a little bit more with the water.
Definitely did on a palate.
Oh,
for sure.
Still
it did on the palate.
Great nose. Here's the thing: it's a great nose, but it's. I think this is. I'm not going to give away my score yet, but I know where my score is probably going to land, unless the ice pour will blow me away. I do really like this.
Yes.
And I'm really impressed by it. But I don't know if it's blowing my mind. It's right at that balance of like not blowing my mind, but still really good.
Did the water make it a little more vapory for you?
It made it a little more vapory. No, actually it didn't, but
really?
I have a feeling the ice will make it a little more cold.
Yeah, I'm sure. No, like so the water kind of gave me a little more vapor. It's like it's tingling my nose a little bit more.
Yeah,
I did already sneak a sip, and I do feel you on the oak. I did get that a little bit more because
a little more on the palate too.
I taste a little more bitter when with my current little
tiny bit. Yeah. Dang it. Try that again. Nah, you can just leave it. Yeah, there you go. Giving it the old spin J, the old matte job with an ice cube in there. Muted it a little bit on the nose. It's still got a very bright, fruity, but not too bright. Like it's like mid bright. So like the range of what I call bright versus like dark would be like a sherry finished Scotch, such as like Glendronach, is dark. It's not bright. Like you're getting raisins,
plums and raisins.
But then on the other side, there's like fresh apples. That's like one of the most bright notes you can get is like fresh apples.
Pear.
Pear. Fresh pear, yeah. And this is on the brighter side, but not 100% like fresh apples. Like I said, it's more of a baking apples.
I mean, I'm getting my nose in here. I don't smell a thing.
It's definitely muted comparatively. But I'm going to sip it before it gets too warm.
Yeah, no, like apparently I've had COVID my entire life because my nose has never worked. I can't hardly smell a thing.
Great front of the palate. Great finish of the palate. That might be the best pour. Hate to say it. I mean, the best palate.
The cold, yeah, the chilled is refreshing.
Yeah.
Because it is a little warm in Virginia today.
Yeah.
Although not near as warm as Arizona, so I'm glad to be here for sure.
It's still like 95 in Arizona these days, right?
Yeah. Oh, it was 100 the other day when I rode my bike home from work. I live a mile from the school.
I do miss Arizona. I do miss 100 degrees in Arizona. I'll take it any day over the 89 or 88 here any day.
All I know is either place I'm getting a trench of swampy goodness just because of like I'm in Arizona. It's stinking hot. The sun just shines like it's in your back pocket.
Yeah.
Here the humidity is just outrageous.
Yeah,
and I'm like,
that's terrible.
I can't win.
Yeah, you're
Baby
ready to
powder
swamp.
all around.
Yeah. But okay, so second sip not as good. A little bit slightly bitter on the finish.
There's no oak tannin.
Yeah.
I'm trying like honey instead of brown sugar because it lightened it up.
I would say on the front, or like on the neat pour, it was more of a white sugar to me. But I'm down to hear that. Let me go for one last sip.
I'm curious. I'm trying to figure that out. Yeah, that got lighter. Oh man, what is that? Something just hit me. I can't figure it out.
It's still good with ice.
Yeah.
But I don't know if I stick to my original saying ice might be the best. I think neat is the best, but not by much. There's a little bit of weird bitterness with the ice pour that wasn't there before.
At the very tail end.
Totally.
Yeah, it's right in the finish.
It's almost a little astringent.
Although this is definitely a whiskey I think that I could pour my wife and she would take my first sip and she would go, Like I think I get that. Like that's my wife. She's not the biggest whiskey fan, but I always give her the first sip of anything I have, so long as it's not 120 proof or higher. I don't want to hurt her. Yeah. Irish whiskey is where she lives. She loves that. She likes her whiskey like she likes her men. Yeah. Intoxicating and Irish, kind of like me.
O'Laughlin.
That's right. But yeah, no. So this is one I could definitely pour for her, which is really weird because she's also, and I saw it, I think downstairs was your Four Roses small batch select. That is one of her absolute favorites. And this
one of the best accessible bourbons.
Right. I think this is kind of in that same vein, flavor wise, and that's why I think she would like this.
That's cool. No, it's this could remind me of Four Roses small batch select. Yeah, that's a good point. All that being said, I'm about to give my rating, but I will say this. Good on you, Missouri.
Yes.
Good on you, McCormick / Ben Holladay or Holladay Distilling. Keep it up. I would love to see a 10-year of this.
Oh my goodness.
It might not even be better. Like, this is a really good range for a bourbon.
I mean, if you're going to go 10-year, you'd almost have to go like 10-year cask strength or something at that point.
Yeah, I would love to see that.
Just to upscale that one.
So keep in mind, Holladay Distilling. This was great. And actually, that's one of the coolest things about this whiskey is like they are doing it right, and they are doing it well. And weird that happened at the same time, but it's not weird because when you do it well, you do it right, and when you do it right, you do it well. So good on you, Missouri. Good on you, Weston, Missouri, and good on you, Holladay Distilling. I give this an 8.9. Just below Hubba What status, like just below blowing my mind status. Very good, very, very good. I would say this is great even. So keep it up. But like I said, it's not like there's no spikes in the the scale that I'm looking at. There's nothing that's like, oh, check this note out. Really great apple notes, really great caramel, soft caramel notes, great bourbon. But not blowing my mind. But still great.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Yep.
So.
Like this would be something you would pour somebody and they would not be disappointed.
Yeah.
For sure. Like this would actually be a great beginner, even whiskey, just
I'd
to
agree.
get people
especially
into
for a bottle
whiskey.
and bond.
Absolutely, yeah. Because you're not melting their face.
Yeah.
I'm with you on that. The apple crumble note for me, fantastic. Like I rarely do I get that note. Like most of the time I hear you and anyone else that you're hosting and like, oh, I get apples on this. I'm like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
So like I never get apples, but this is one of the few I have. I was thinking 8, 7, 8, 8. So I'm gonna go split the difference. I'm gonna go 8, 7, 5.
Okay.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Doing a Missouri boy proud. So thank you so much because I've had some bad Missouri whiskey too.
Totally.
So I would be proud to be like, hey, this is a Missouri whiskey. I want to show you what this state's putting out. No, so good. Great history behind the name. Love that too because Missouri it is one of those states that kind of I can't remember those flyover states that is looked over like most people are like, oh, that's one of those square states like, in the middle, right?
Kansas City only in Kansas?
Oh, yeah, Kansas City's in Kansas. Like no, Kansas City, Missouri is older than Kansas City, Kansas. Just anyway, don't even get me started on that little bit of history. So no, this was fantastic. Love it. Love it.
Yeah, one thing I mentioned off the mic was that Weston, Missouri used to be the largest port city in Missouri, or off the Missouri River, rather, until a big flood changed everything. And then Kansas City was the Big John off the Missouri River. So. Which
then probably turned it into like the big jumping off point, them and Independence for all the trails west, Oregon Trail, the Mormon Trail, Santa Fe Trail.
That's a good point. Yeah, because and then one of the funny things is I learned about Ben Holladay was he had connections such as Abraham Lincoln and Brigham Young.
Oh yeah, the Mormon Trail, absolutely. Although every time you do this, I think of like you're saying the stagecoach line, I'm thinking of like the Rifleman and like those episodes on like the stagecoach stop along.
You ever seen 310 to Yuma?
Love it.
That's
absolutely.
A great movie.
Fantastic.
Have you seen the original?
Ooh, no.
Neither have I. So
I have not seen it.
The newer one is great.
Absolutely, it is fantastic.
So all I'll say, if you're interested in a good Western, is that Russell Crowe's great, Christian Bale's great, but Ben Foster. Ben Foster playing Charlie Prince, the best role of the whole movie. He just plays such a good bad guy. Better bad guy than Russell Crowe plays, Ben Wade. So check that movie out. And so now that we've said check that movie out, I guess it's time for our next segment of the show that we like to call Whiskey World News.
And we're back, and we're going to do Whiskey World News. We didn't write it. We're going to read it, and then we're going to talk about it. But here we go. So, coming out of WGME up in Maine. This is by Anna Kuhn, and it is York Planning Board votes down distillery expansion over whiskey fungus concerns. So,
fungus.
Yes. After an hours-long discussion, the York Planning Board on Thursday night voted down the local distillery's application to expand over concerns of whiskey fungus. Wiggly Bridge Distillery, fantastic name, by the way, had applied for an expansion. At the same time, an unwanted fungus had shown up in town, and people were concerned the two are connected. Whiskey fungus has been a hot topic for the neighborhood of York in Maine. Many residents are concerned over the black sticky fungus on their properties. Whiskey fungus has no known health facts, but it can damage homes and trees. It feeds off of ethanol fumes, and most distilleries admit. But Wiggly Bridge says there are no emission readings outside of their property line. The distillery representatives claimed you can blame them. The distillery's representatives claimed you can't blame them since separate studies show whiskey fungus, or whatever that scientific name is that I'm not going to read because I am not a reader. That is my wife. Shout out to my wifey's podcast, Tales Over Tales, which I am the cocktail consultant on.
Nice.
Has found scattered throughout the town. But the planning board's main issue was they couldn't explain why the fungus was in the neighborhood for any other reason other than the distillery. And right there, I'm going to stop. So, Cole, what are your thoughts on this one?
You know, it's not just a hot topic in York, Maine. It's
everywhere.
a hot topic in Frankfort, Kentucky, in Lynchburg, Tennessee. It
Lawrenceburg,
is
Kentucky.
Yeah, it is huge, and I'm sure you've seen it more than I have. You know, I'm not living in typical distillery sites, but it is very real, the whiskey fungus. I mean, you go to these towns and you'll see on like the street signs, you'll see this like black haze over every street sign, but it's like apparently it's like kind of sticky.
I'm going to talk to this one. So going to Wild Turkey, you know you're getting close as things get darker and darker and darker. There were a couple of road signs I couldn't even read because the black had filled in all the white. The barns get black.
Yep, that's for sure.
Honestly, I think that is how some of the during Prohibition, some of the bootlegging got shut down because they found
saw
that.
it ahead of time.
But I understand, like, it can be a nuisance, but let the boys make their whiskey.
Give the boys some whiskey. I like that. Yeah. No, it's funny. It's like, it's a matter of, it is real and it is obvious and it is almost a 1-to-1 correlation there. But it's like, what's more worth it? Your home or the fact that America can enjoy Wiggle Bridge whiskey? You know what I'm saying? Wiggly Bridge whiskey.
That's right.
So,
Maine, not a place I would expect for whiskey to be made.
They better be making some good ryes up there.
Oh, no joke.
You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to hit up Wiggly Bridge Distillery and see if we can have them on the podcast.
Yeah, I think something else that was in that article is they were saying that it was hurting their business because they couldn't expand. Yeah. Man, that makes me sad.
I'm into business.
Absolutely.
I'm into businesses growing. I'm into not stopping businesses from growing. Right. But that's a hard one.
Which this almost makes me wonder, like, so when you and I started a distillery sometime, because we all know your taste is better than mine, so you would definitely be my master blender.
All I'm saying is, I didn't think I had skills until I went on Matt Madness, and I was like, holy crap, I'm good at this.
That's right. But no, like, I've always joked around for years because my parents have 160 acres out in the middle of nowhere in Missouri.
It's a great place to start.
I don't have to worry about black fungus from my neighbors. They are not going to have an issue with it. And I'm just sitting here like I got a barn that I could hide a couple barrels away in. Like,
that's what it's all about.
What are we going to call this? Like the first non-chill or chill filtered, non-chill filtered.
I don't know about the distillery name, but I definitely know that the first bottling will be called chill filtered. Non-chill filtered.
And then we're going to do in honor of our explicit rating, we're going to do a cast strength option called chill filtered explicit rating.
Yeah, or not bastardized whiskey or something. Do you remember that?
Oh my god!
Where Adam was like, "You just cursed."
Yeah, I would say let's see. We'll go for batch 2 is going to be it gets thicker in your mouth.
Yeah, exactly. I like that.
Or batch 3. Bushing your baked beans.
Yeah, bush your baked beans on camera. That's great. So, now that we've covered Whiskey World News, did I ask you to do what whiskey would you choose?
You did not, but I actually planned ahead, and I have one.
I
am so solid. So
okay, cool.
This is totally, and honestly, because of the Ben Holladay with the Holladay Distillery, I've thrown out Rocktown Distilling down there in Little Rock, Arkansas.
Nice.
What distillery, what craft distillery, like local small distillery.
I like where this is going.
who needs a shout out this week to drum up some interest in them so people find
besides Whiskey Del Bach?
Oh yeah, I know. Like I straight up, I am probably one of the biggest Whiskey Del Bach fanboys.
They're great. And now you live in Arizona, so it's even better.
I live in Arizona. I have access to the Total Wine store picks and cast strength on those Dorados. You still have one of them. I finished mine off because I moved, and I think I finished it straight out of the bottle as I was packing. But yes, besides Del Bach, because I think we've... I
like this question. I think this is great. Great question. I'm trying to think.
Yeah. It's tough.
Where have I been that have been very happy with a craft distiller? Especially someone that makes their own stuff.
Yeah. You need a minute to think about it?
Yeah, you go ahead first.
Cool. So I recently got to go on a distillery tour. It was a gift from my sister-in-law and her husband. And it was my Christmas present, so got to go to this. It's a little place in Tempe, Arizona called Adventurous Stills.
Been there. Yeah.
And it was I was blown away because I walked in and I kind of like you outside of Del Bach. I've never really had anyone do small barrels right.
Totally.
And they had like some medium-sized barrels, and then had some full-size. But for being a lower-proofed whiskey, it was one of the most viscous, oily. I was like, wow, that they really brought it. Yeah. Their Peralta bourbon,
I've heard of that.
Really,
I've tasted that.
Really impressed me for what it was. So shout out to Adventurous Stills.
Yeah, in Tempe, Arizona.
That's right.
Yeah, I've been there. Actually, I gave them my card at one point, and they. To be honest, I didn't follow up with them. I should have followed up with them a while back, but I gave my card. They're like, we would love to have be represented on your podcast, and I was like, I'll make it happen, and I didn't. So I apologize, Adventurous Stills.
Hey,
maybe one day I'll make it happen.
Sounds like an extension office, a little intern opportunity for me to send me on site for
exactly. Yeah, you'll be at the very least you could be a what do they call that? A correspondent.
There you go, roving correspondent.
Yeah, exactly. So you'll be the Southwest correspondent.
What are you gonna send me a smoke wagon next?
Oh yeah, no that and I mean heck, you could be the Del Bach correspondent.
Oh my god, I'll take that any day. Any day.
And Del Bach, let me just say. We still got to do their, once we figure out the next co-host, we're going to be doing the Sentinel Batch 2. I'm really excited about that.
Can't wait to get my hands on that one.
Yeah.
So. Actually, Sentinel 1 was still on. That was what I drank on the Tribute to Cole episode. So did Sentinel Batch 1 and just regular Dorado. Yeah. Both fantastic.
Yeah, I see it right back there.
Yeah, there you go.
I haven't even cracked the bottle yet.
And then you got your Sentinel Batch 2, which I need to go pick up.
Yep. Well, no, I have both. I have Sentinel Batch 1 in the back and then Sentinel Batch 2 in the front.
Nice.
But it's funny. It's funny you bring this up because one of the big ones that comes to my mind is one that you introduced me to, which is MB Roland.
Oh.
A craft distiller for sure. They're doing their own stuff, and they are doing some crazy stuff.
Not what I was expecting you to go on this one.
What were you expecting?
Well, I wasn't expecting him to be rolling. I thought I was going to give them the shout out on this one because you weren't too happy with that first bourbon that I had you try out.
I think they're trying cool things.
They are trying cool things. But the reason I sent it to you all is because you had... I think Robbie asked the question, do they smoke corn? And I was like, oh, do they smoke corn?
Oh, they
and I
smoke
immediately
some
sent
corn.
that one.
Yeah.
And it, because
did we ever do the smoked corn episode?
You did.
Yeah, we did.
Because you tried mine and somebody else's side by side.
John Hughes.
There you go.
Yeah, because he lives not too far from...
Pembroke.
Yeah, Pembroke. Yep.
Yes, about an hour northwest out of Nashville. Mm-hmm. Fantastic. It's on an old Amish farm.
That's cool.
A dairy farm, and then everything's cast strength, so you water it down or ice it down.
You can do whatever you want.
It. Mm-hmm. And then tons of flavored things too that they do. It is fantastic. And the tours, go see Catfish. He is funny.
I love that.
I mean, it is.
Love
fantastic.
a tour guide named Catfish.
Oh, absolutely. So
that's funny.
Yeah. So wow, MB Roland. It took my
I mean,
week,
I would say Wilderness Trail, which was also introduced by you.
Yeah, I love Wilderness Trail.
But I feel like they're not even craft anymore. I feel like they're killing it.
They got bought out by who was it that bought them out?
I don't even know.
Did
they get bought out by?
Not Campari. Somebody bought out Wilderness Trail. It was one of the big guys because they're doing such fantastic things. And
really, that's great for them.
Absolutely,
yeah. And I hope they continue what they're doing because here's the thing about Wilderness Trail is they proved how important yeast is.
Yes.
For bourbon especially.
Yep.
Like oh my goodness, like their rye is like perfect for the price.
Like we couldn't even tell the first time we tried that weeded bourbon was weeded.
My goodness.
Like it did not taste that way.
I mean, it wasn't even that. It was, I just still remember the strawberry notes, like the soft strawberry notes that I got from that weeded bourbon. It's never left me.
And then the hard candy off of the
rye.
Fantastic.
Totally.
Oh, so good.
So, no, that's great. We might not be able to put but we'll put this on let me back up. We'll put this on Instagram and say, hey, what's your choice for we don't have last week's results, that's for sure, because we are recording before we actually even did last episode or put last episode on live, but we will hopefully get the results from both next episode.
There you go.
Check that out.
And looking forward to the write-ins. Want to hear that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Give these guys a shout.
Yeah.
Give them the tags. So that they
exactly.
Can,
I would love
really
to even put them on the results.
If you could create a result one and just put all the tags everywhere and let everybody just click on it.
Also, quick shout out to Broascotasquinososa for what a baller. What a friggin' baller, because he offered to help out in our time of need and said I would be happy to do your results.
Ooh, nice.
For a little bit,
very cool.
And for the and present the actual what do you call it? the actual what was you to choose segment on Instagram. So we love our Canadian turtle friend for that reason. That's and right. For many more reasons than that, including being a Patreon subscriber. So we got
such a handsome fella.
We got some good friggin' listeners.
That's right.
I think of we're in a time of transition. We're in a time of change, and so many people have stepped up. Looking at you, Dramhound. Looking at you, Broascotasquinososa. Looking at you, Ben Klepsig, and all these people that have really stepped up and said, I want to help. And I appreciate that. Even
the co-host you've had so far on.
Yeah.
Brian Rapp.
Bryce,
I know. I love
Brian
that
Rapp,
one. I haven't gotten to listen to Bryce yet. I'm looking forward to hearing that one.
Yeah. So, it was killer with the Yam 18, man. Nice. I'll tell you that. But
the Yazamaki?
Yazamaki. Shout out to Floyd.
That's right, Floyd.
Yeah, but in a good way, Floyd, because
Absolutely.
you have grown.
Dude, you were awesome. Better. Thanks for hosting us.
You were great. Yeah, seriously. Dude, Rampur double cast. I'm gonna stop there. But no, I think that's a great episode. Any other things you want to say to our listeners?
Well, I hope you've enjoyed this episode.
I hope that you can put up with a few more, or at least one more test episode before we select our next host.
Right. I hope that our time here doesn't end, but sadly it will.
Yeah. I hope that whiskey always tastes good in my mouth. But most of all, listeners, I hope that our love of spirits... Oh, wait, no. Of whiskey lifted your spirits.
My name's Cole. I get apples on every good whiskey.